Browns made a plethora of roster moves today, including 2 former first-round draft picks. So we're going to break all that down, but make sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button. We're going to keep you guys in the know all season long, no matter what the team's record is. So join nearly 40,000 strong here at the Cleveland Browns Report. But let's look at the roster moves made today. We got some notable names and then a whole lot of never heard of him before. But Greg Newsome and Kadarius Toney, a pair of former first-round draft picks, their time with the Browns appears to be done, at least for this year. So Newsome was placed on injured reserve with a hamstring injury. If you remember, he had a hamstring soft tissue injury in the summer, which caused him to miss all of training camp on the NFI list. But I'm really wondering if we have seen the last of Greg Newsome in Cleveland. He's got a $13.3 million fifth-year option for next year, which is fully guaranteed. It's one of the most simplistic times for the salary cap. It's $13.3 million in base salary, cap hit, all of it. So with that, I think we are going to see a Greg Newsome trade this upcoming offseason. I can't say for sure one way or the other if the hamstring injury he sustained is truly season-ending or if it's just going to cause him to miss 1 or 2 weeks. There's only 4 weeks left in the season. Maybe you want to get some extra eyes on Cam Mitchell, who could take over for Newsome next year and be a whole lot cheaper than $13.3 million. So you decide, hey, let's just put him on the shelf for the rest of the year. That way he can't further injure himself and we don't potentially hurt his trade value anymore. But if his time in Cleveland is done, there's going to be some good memories of Newsome with the Browns. The pick 6 against the Ravens, he was always entertaining, to say the least. The guy had plenty of dance moves, no matter what happened on the play, and at times was frustrating. But all in all, I think Greg Newsome is a starting caliber corner in the NFL. I know some fans kind of want to run him out of town, and they don't think he's all that great. I feel like for being a first-round pick, there are always going to be high expectations. If Newsome was just a second or third, I feel like people would view him entirely different. But because he has that first-round tag on him, which, go look at the last couple of years, guys that get picked between 26 and 32, most of them, you'd be surprised, do not work out as well as you think. And for Newsome, I think he worked out pretty well. Sure, he didn't live up to maybe some expectations, but all in all, I don't know if that's a pick we look back at as a complete failure. That seems a little bit harsh, but I could see the Browns looking at their future going, we need more draft picks, we need some cap relief right now, and we've got a pretty good player at a very important position, corner, that we could move on from, get some draft capital, and shed maybe $13.3 million, which is exactly what the Browns did to the Broncos last year when they took Jerry Jeudy off their hands. So what could you get for Newsome? Not a whole lot. He didn't have a great season this year. He's got $13.3 million guaranteed. But I know the Vikings really need help in their secondary. All of their starting corners are going to be free agents after this year. So they've got to find a way to replenish that position group. So I could see the Browns calling up Minnesota, who they know their GM of, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, used to work for the Browns, and going, hey, you've got this 5th-round draft pick. That actually used to be our 5th-round draft pick, but we traded it to you for Zadarius Smith. So how about we get that 5th-rounder back? We'll give you Greg Newsome and a 6th-round draft pick, and you take all $13.3 million off of our hands, which we know you can afford because you are not paying any big contract to a quarterback. This, to me, seems like a pretty big win-win, right? The Vikings get a starting caliber corner. They go from round 5 to round 6. They take on $13.3 million, which they can afford, for a position that they are in dire need of. And the Browns get $13.3 million in cap relief and jump up from round 6 to round 5. Who says no? So would you trade Greg Newsome? For me, I feel like with the way this team is headed and Newsome going into a contract year, you could hold on to him, and maybe you decide to move on from him at the trade deadline if 2025 is not going to plan. But to me, he is just not shaping up to be a corner that's going to get a second contract from this team. And that's not ideal, but it's not the worst thing in the world. You got 3.5-ish good years from him. So, yeah, I think I'd do that deal in a heartbeat. Next move I want to talk about. Kadarius Toney was released in the least surprising news of the day. Yeah, I saw this one coming. Didn't you? The Browns decided after watching him fumble a punt and getting a taunting penalty after the first time he was permanently elevated to the active 53-man roster to cut ties. Yeah, I mean, they gave him an opportunity, they placed him on the roster, and what did he do? Turned it over and cost a penalty in like his 2 snaps. So no real surprise the Browns decided, well, that experiment is over. Maybe they bring him back to the practice squad and they just want to open up a roster spot. But if that was the case, I think they would just keep Toney on the roster since they opened one up by placing Newsome on IR. How many practice squad guys are they dying to bring up? Probably not too many. Now, we are going to talk about another roster move, including a practice squad signing for a kicker and what that means for Dustin Hopkins. But first, I want to give a big shout out to our friends over at GameTime. If you want to go see a Browns game for the rest of the year, maybe you want to go see the Buckeyes take on my Tennessee Volunteers next Saturday. Whatever it is, do it at GameTime. You see, GameTime has this thing called GameTime Picks, which basically filters out the fluff for you so you don't spend like 30 plus minutes comparing prices and tickets across multiple sites. No, with GameTime, you can just get the best value. So download the GameTime app today and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information because I love you guys in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Now, let's talk about another move that was made, and that is Dustin Hopkins' replacement potentially being signed. It's no secret that Hopkins had a down year, and that was put with an exclamation point on Sunday against the Steelers, missing 2 very makeable kicks that would have tied the game in the middle of the third quarter, not to be. So D-Hop definitely has the pressure on him at the moment because the Browns went out and they signed Riley Patterson to their practice squad. So Riley Patterson might be a familiar name because he was actually the Browns kicker to close out last season. Remember when Hopkins got hurt in the Texans game on the kickoff, was it? And missed the last 2 games of the season? Patterson came on board. He didn't do a whole lot because his number just wasn't called. He only made an attempted 1 field goal. But now he is on the practice squad yet again. He was on the Jets earlier this year. He was with the Lions before that. He was the Jags kicker for a whole season. So he's got a decent amount of experience for sure, and he's got some familiarity with Bubba Ventrone and the way the special teams unit operates. But ultimately, Dustin Hopkins is just on his last strike here. I really think it is a one more miss and he's gone. I mean, as long as it's not from like 60-plus yards, if it's a reasonable and expected make and he misses it, I don't think they brought Riley Patterson onto the practice squad for some Make-A-Wish Foundation. Like, I think they are bringing on a replacement in the wings, so if Hopkins misses a kick, they don't have to sign a guy cold off the street. They've got a guy who is kicking all week at practice and is kind of getting into the flow and the swing of things. So if they want to make a move, they've already got someone in the bullpen warmed up and stretch, and they're not just signing a guy off the street to kick in a couple of days. Now, financially, it's not ideal to move on from Hopkins because they just extended him back in July with $8 million guaranteed, but by no stretch is it impossible. Like, you shouldn't look at this and go, yeah, they can't move on from Dustin Hopkins. No, they can, but it's not great. I mean, it's just a bad look internally to release a player a few months after you gave him a 3-year contract extension. But ultimately, if he is costing you games and costing you opportunities to be in games, you have to swallow your pride and do what's best for the team. And right now, Hopkins is, simply put, costing this team games and opportunities. Now, maybe he bounces back after this year if they decide to hold on to him. You look at his track record. Last year, he was one of the best kickers, period, in football. 91% on field goals. Before that, with the Chargers, he split time between the Commanders and the Chargers in 2021. Like, he's got a decent track record over the last couple of years. However, this year, it's been a lot of misses. In a make-or-miss league, that's not going to get you a long leash. So Hopkins is on his last strike in my eyes with this Riley Patterson signing. One more miss, and we are probably looking at a different kicker the following week when the Browns take on the Bengals. All right, before we get on out of here, I just want to show some love to not only the Brown and Orange Club, but a couple of people that sent in some super thanks to the channel over the last bit of time. So, Ray Bidding, thank you as always for watching with us every single Sunday and your continued support of the channel. Same goes for James Belt, who sent in a super thanks a little while ago. We added him to the Brown and Orange Club as a result. And then Charles, M Style, and Joshua Miller, who's always with us every single time we go live. I cannot thank you guys enough for supporting the channel. If you'd like to get a shout out, send in a super thanks. You can hit the heart, and it's like a heart with a $sign in the middle of an icon. Send in whatever you're comfortable sending, and we'll throw whatever you have to say on screen for everyone watching to see. As always, appreciate the Brown and Orange Club rocking and rolling with us through a very tough year. 3-10 is not where we expected to be back over the summer, but you guys have been resilient watching with us, so I really appreciate your continued support all season long. That will do it for us on today's episode. Appreciate everyone for watching for a second time today. If you missed our earlier video, go watch that right now. It is all about Browns fans being pissed at Deshaun Watson. So, what's new?